this week's lesson, we're going to learn about functions. Functions are like little programs that can take in variables, process them, and return data. Functions are very important in test automation because they allow you to repeat tasks like login or data setup. Let's learn how to make a function. Okay, let's make a new file, and we will call it functions.js. And now let's make our very first function. So the first thing we need to do is we need to use the word function. And then we say my first function. That's going to be the name of the function. Then we need a set of parentheses that shows that this is a function. And you will see you can either put things in the parentheses or not put things in the parentheses, but the parentheses need to be there in order for it to be a function. And then all functions need to have code inside the curly braces. So there's our curly braces, and let's put something inside. Console.log. This is my function. Okay, now that we have this function, let's see if we can run it. All we need to do to run the function is we call it, and we call it like this, with its name, my first function, and then the parentheses, and that's it. So let's save, and now let's run the file, node functions.js, and we can see our function ran, and it printed out, this is my function. Well, that was pretty basic. So let's see if we can write another slightly more complicated function. So we will say function, my second function, and again with the parentheses, but this time we're going to put something in the parentheses. We're going to say name. So that's going to be a name variable that gets passed into the function. So then we have the curly braces, and now we'll put console.log, and then we'll say hi, comma, space, and then plus, and then the variable name, and then an exclamation point. Okay, so remember we learned a little while ago about string concatenation. So that's what we're doing here is we're concatenating all of this together into one big string. So you've got in between the first two sets of quotes, you've got hi and then comma and then space, because you want a space between the message hi and the person's name. So then it's going to put in the name variable, and then right after the name variable, it's going to put an exclamation point. So now let's call this function. So we'll call it a couple times. We'll say my second function, and then in parentheses, we'll put in Kristen. And we put it in quote marks because it is a string. Now let's call it again. We'll say my second function, and now we'll call Fred. Okay, so what do you think is going to happen when we run these two functions? If you guessed it's going to say, hi, Kristen, and then hi, Fred, you are correct. Let's see that working. Make sure that you save. And there we go. We see hi, Kristen, and hi, Fred. Okay, let's make a new function that's a little more complicated than that. So we'll say function, and now let's give it a name, not just my first function, my second function. We'll call this function add to numbers, because it is a good idea when you are creating functions to have their names explain what they do. So inside this function add to numbers, we're going to pass in an X and a Y variable. And then remember, we need our curly braces to create the body of our function. And now we're going to put in this command, return X plus Y. A lot of times functions are set to return things. So you call the function and then it returns the answer that you're looking for. So now let's call this function. So we'll say add two numbers, and then we will pass in two numbers. Let's pass in 2 and 3. So now let's save and let's run this. So did our function get called? Well, we can't tell. The reason why we can't tell is because we didn't log anything out inside this function. We just returned a value. So the only way we can see if the value is returned is if we call it in some way, do something with it. So let's do this. We will say console.log add two numbers. And now we'll put in 2 and 3. And so this time we're saying run the add two numbers command on 2 and 3. Actually, let's remove this. And then when you're all done with that, then log it out. So now we should get a result that we can see. And there we go. We get a result, 5. Thanks for watching this video. If you found my training helpful, please like this video and share it with others. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single lesson. If you're enjoying Monday Morning Automation and you'd like to learn even faster, be sure to check out my book, The Complete Software Tester, which is available in Kindle and paperback on Amazon.com.